Despite its seemingly idyllic beauty of forests and mountainous terrain, West Virginia is somewhat of a paranormal hotspot. From Mothman to the Bunnyman to the topic of today's video, West Virginia certainly isn't quite as normal and safe as you might think. What's up guys, it's Freaky Informer, and today I'm talking all about the Grinning Man, an alien entity mostly associated with West Virginia. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing or liking the video. Let's get into the case. Woodrow Woody Derenberger is quite the man of mystery. Despite being a fairly infamous author, the man has little to no biography available online. This wouldn't be quite so odd if it wasn't for the fact that the man died in March of 1990, a year before the first ever website was launched. It begs the question of, did this man really exist? However, Derenberger's birth and death certificates are available in public databases, and he has written a book. Woodrow Wilson Derenberger was born to Franklin and Alma Derenberger on the 10th of October 1916, presumably in West Virginia, although there is no indication on the documents I found. Regardless, there is very little on the man's childhood either. In fact, despite the alien stuff I'm about to tell you, he does come across as quite stable and well-adjusted. The first extraterrestrial that Woodrow encountered wasn't even the first sighting of this said alien. We're quickly going to visit a sighting of something strange in New Jersey, 3 states away from the Derenbergers' home of West Virginia. On October 16th of 1966, Martin Mouse Munov and James Jimmy Yanchidis were walking down 4th Street when they were greeted by an extremely out-of-the-norm sight. The two saw a figure standing beside the fence that they were approaching. This was no means out of the norm, but as the boys approached the figure, they realized that something was off. It wasn't just the figure's height and baldness that took the boys aback. It wasn't even the figure's strange clothing of a shiny green suit that set the boys' teeth on edge. No, the boys were much more concerned with the figure's huge grin. It wasn't a normal one either. The scary smile was much too reminiscent for Momo for the boys, and they took off in a sprint. The figure chased after the boys, and they kept running until they eventually evaded it. It wasn't until after Martin gave the following statement that they remembered other factors about the creature.
Jimmy nudged me and said, "Who's that guy standing behind you?" I looked around and there he was, behind that fence, just standing there. He pivoted around and looked right at us. Then he grinned a big old grin.
After this interview, once the shock wore off, the boys would come to realize that the odd figure was missing some key features, specifically ears and a nose. However, that wasn't the only odd occurrence in New Jersey that night, because several citizens reported seeing UFOs that night, even before they had heard the boys' strange encounter with the Grinning Man. But this isn't about them. This isn't about Woodrow Derenberger either, but he is the main source of information about the Grinning Man. His first sighting of the Grinning Man occurred on his route home from his job as a salesman. It was November 2nd, 1966. On the drive home from work, Derenberger found the road to be blocked by a large grey object. Derenberger stopped the car abruptly, shocked. A humanoid figure stepped out of the large grey object before approaching Derenberger's window. As the creature stepped away from the craft allegedly took off 50 feet in the air. The creature, who now appeared to be fairly human, got to Derenberger's car window and began to speak to the man. The strange being informed Derenberger that the being was a searcher, before sharing some positive affirmations to the man. The searcher then informed Woodrow that he would be back again. The searcher then approached the craft as it descended and then got back on it before the object took off. The second that Derenberger got back home, he regaled the tale to his wife before calling the authorities and media. Even in 1966, clout was a huge motivator. The entity known as the Searcher would come back to Derenberger time and time again, and eventually the man would write several books. Because of the alien's first sighting of the young boys, it's often known as the Grinning Man. Here's what we know about the Grinning Man from the creature's interactions with the Derenberger. The second interaction between the two happened on the 4th of November, 2 days after the initial contact between the figure and Durenberger. They would continue to have visitations together, which would be documented extensively in the book Visitors from Lanulos. According to Durenberger, who says that every piece of information came from the entity known as the Grinning Man, the alien's name was Indrid Cold. As Durenberger was driving in his car, Indrid Cold began to communicate with him telepathically. The Grinning Man began to talk of his home. According to the entity, his home was the galaxy of Ganymede, and those living there were extremely different from humans, in that residents of Cold's planet lived to be between 125 and 175 Earth years. Durenberger's books go into a lot more detail, with more and more outlandish claims with every new page. However, these claims and encounters coincide with several independent UFO sightings for each of Durenberger's alien encounters. An investigation by federal authorities officially concluded in a formal report that Durenberger was not fabricating a hoax, nor was he committing fraud for clout. However, the report is very insistent that hallucinations did not get ruled out of the possibilities. Either way, more information about Indrid Cold, aka the Grinning Man, was reported by Durenberger. Indrid Cold told Woodrow many interesting things about his people. The alien told the man of his home planet, Lanulos. Eventually, Cold decided that describing the planet wasn't enough, because in 1967 he supposedly took Woodrow aboard his spaceship, and proceeded to visit Cold's home planet of Lanulos. According to Durenberger, on a second visit later on, they actually walked around the planet's surface, where the author discovered that the people of Lanulos walked around naked. Obviously, there's a lot more to the story of Indrid Cold, but I am more interested in some theories about the unusual being. Obviously, we have the usual suspect theories. The Grinning Man could be an alien being, ghost, or cryptid. But there are two theories about Indrid Cold which really stick out. The first comes from a random user on the internet by the name of Samwam. Obviously, anyone can claim anything on the internet, but there's a lot of detail given by Samwam, who claims to be a relative to close friends of Indrid Cold, who is also known as Indrid Cold. The man detailed online by Samwam did a lot of travelling, especially around the United States, from the end of 1966 to the beginning of 1967. Indrid Cold himself allegedly told the commenter's family of 2 encounters that were detailed earlier in this episode, but neglected to mention being on a spaceship or being a searcher. According to Samwam, the man was extremely good-natured and mischievous, always sneaking up on people and pranking them. It's also said that the man was extremely socially clueless and smiled a wide smile even when a smile wasn't appropriate to the situation. Indrid Cold's supposed ancestry would also explain the odd features he was described to have. Cold's family were Canadian Inuits, meaning that he had a broad, flat nose, as well as eyes that were said to be somewhat far apart, according to Samwam. This is all well and good, but Samwam's last comment really gives off the vibe of somebody who's simply being satirical. But it's this next theory that is my absolute favourite. Because the sightings of Indrid Cold coincide with sightings of Mothman as well as other paranormal happenings, quite a few people point to the theory that Indrid Cold is not an alien, but an alien-oriented force of the police. That's right. There are quite a few clue-ins that point to Cold being a member of the Men in Black. There are many reports worldwide of the Men in Black, who are said to be authorities sent to clean up extraterrestrials and paranormal activities and sightings. Most of these reports predate the release of the immensely popular Men in Black movies. In fact, in 1966 and 1967, there were a short wave of encounters with beady-eyed, wide-mouthed, giant prowler with a fixed grin in Provincetown, Massachusetts. This implies that Indrid Cold was travelling around quite a bit and following odd happenings. In fact, in the late 60s, there was a wave of UFO activity, which would certainly explain why Indrid Cold was there in that time frame. Furthermore, the Grinning Man's description seems to match some of the traits of the Men in Black, who are described to be extremely tall, pale, and having absolutely no facial hair, which includes eyelashes and eyebrows. They're also bald, and their eyes are also described by witnesses to be abnormally large, much like Indrid Cold's. What better way to hide the fact that you're getting rid of extraterrestrials than to look somewhat like your prey? That's it for today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to let me know and like, comment, and subscribe. As always, there is a charity and petition waiting for you in the description, and also make sure to check out Tem's channel and Twitch, which are linked in the description. Stay freaky, stay informed. It may save your life.